This video is for entertainment purposes only. Do your own research.
From UFOs to weird things we know, it's time for that paranormal, strange, phenomenal show. Biometric wars, a prison planet run by the man. It's time for the Tinfoil Canadian. Take off your hose!
Hello, fellow foilers, and welcome once again to the Tinfoil Canadian, the show where we move forward together as a planet, not as a nation. On today's episode, we ask the question, is it possible to be able to mind control a whole nation, or even a planet? How would such a sinister task even be accomplished? What might such a mind control attack or experiment look like? Hold on to your maple syrup as we look into the Haarp installation in Alaska and why some organizations might possibly be using it for mind control experiments.
Hidden in the remote wilderness of Alaska, surrounded by endless snow and ice, lies a facility veiled in secrecy and fear, Haarp. Today on Spooky Things About Alaska, we're talking about the high-frequency active auroral research program, Haarp. Haarp was designed to study the ionosphere, how it affects satellite communication, how it responds to solar activity, and how it influences the Earth's weather patterns. But some rumors suggest a darker purpose. They say Haarp can control the weather and even our minds. Some suggest that Haarp can cause natural disasters such as hurricanes, tsunamis, and earthquakes, and some claim it's used for mind control, based on the idea that radio waves could influence human behavior. Some people even believe that Haarp is used to communicate with extraterrestrial life. Is it just paranoia, or is there something more to these tales? It's a mystery that haunts Alaska's wilderness.
Well, now that we all know what Haarp is, let's take a deep dive into why this installation could be dangerous, eh?
In 1993, the FAA started warning pilots to stay away from a certain section of airspace over Alaska. The U.S. government was experimenting with a new breed of high-altitude electronic technology that was significantly altering the Alaskan airspace. The experiments continue to this day, and critics are warning that this project could have global effects that will destroy our planet. It is a $100 million Air Force project known as Haarp, and critics of the soon-to-be completed facility charge it just may turn out to be the ultimate doomsday machine.
It's got all the marks of Dr. Strangelove on it.
Haarp is an acronym for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. According to program manager John H.A.A.R.P, Haarp is a research facility designed to study the ionosphere.
All the military have communications, surveillance, navigation systems whose paths either traverse the ionosphere or reflect from it. And so we need to be very careful about what we know about it and how we study it. What we're interested in is what is the effect of a large input of energy on the ionosphere.
The ionosphere is the outermost layer of the Earth's atmosphere. It is part of an electromagnetic field that keeps out harmful solar and cosmic radiation. One visible effect of the sun's rays hitting the ionosphere is the aurora borealis, known as the northern lights. The ionosphere also plays a vital role in worldwide radio communication.
The first transmission of radio waves across the ocean were quite a surprise when it was first done. People thought there'd be no chance to transmit signals across the ocean by wireless. And in fact, what the ionosphere does is act like a mirror. And so you transmit a signal and it bounces off the ionosphere and then it bounces off the Earth.
When Haarp is fully operational, it will transmit extremely powerful blasts of high-frequency radio waves directly up into the atmosphere, superheating the electrons that make up the ionosphere. This will cause them to disperse, effectively punching a hole in the ionosphere.
But after you turn the instrument off, this thing kind of moves around and it gets replenished. And within a few minutes, it's back to where you can't even detect that there's a hole anymore.
The Air Force says that manipulating the ionosphere and studying the effect will allow them to improve the efficiency of communications, navigation, and surveillance systems. But researchers outside the military see Haarp as a high-tech weapon with global implications.
The way I see Haarp as it is right now, it is a premier,
top-notch, high-energy radiophysics experiment, and it has definite military applications. HAARP will stimulate the Auroral electrojet to make an antenna thousands of miles long that will emit these ELF waves.
Farmer's research indicates that the extremely low-frequency waves would be capable of penetrating several kilometers into the Earth, ferreting out nuclear storage facilities and other underground military installations.
Things that we found in other Air Force documents, one in particular was a document put together in '82. The document was called Low Intensity Conflict in Modern Technology, with a foreword by none other than Newt Gingrich. In one section spoke about using radio frequency radiation transmitters for disrupting human thinking, for basically debilitating troops invisibly by being able to bombard them with radio frequency that was tuned to just the right frequency in just the right waveform so as to totally disrupt their mental process and basically debilitate those troops.
The ionosphere is a chaotic system that is on the edge of instability. So the trigger point for HAARP would be that energy and that frequency which throws the ionosphere into chaos. In other words, it would be that point which throws it over the edge.
For example, it is believed that a hole in the Earth's ozone layer has caused an increase in infrared radiation, contributing to the melting of the polar ice caps and forcing New Zealand children to wear protective clothing to school. Flanagan and others believe the potential danger from a hole in the ionosphere is much greater.
It could create a change in the ionospheric shield that protects us from cosmic radiation. We're worried about the ozone layer. The ozone layer is nothing compared to what HAARP could do. You know, we're worried about ultraviolet light. That's just a very harmless ray compared to some of those energy streams or particles that are coming from outer space that are being deflected by this natural shield around the Earth. And this is what HAARP wants to play with.
Were low-frequency weapons, like the ones mentioned in this clip, used by the United States recently with their capture of the Venezuelan president? Who is funding HAARP, and who has been using it since it opened?
A couple questions here about HAARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. This is located up in Alaska. It's currently funded by the Air Force Research Lab. It was formerly funded by the Office of Naval Research. One of the prime customers is DARPA, which is currently running experiments at the facilities. To start with you, Dr. Prabhakar, I understand that a lot of folks here on the committee probably don't understand what HAARP does. I think most Alaskans don't really know what HAARP does or why the agency is involved in it. So a very brief explanation.
One of our programs has been using the HAARP facility for the research that it's pursuing. And my understanding is that we did get value out of that interaction.
Dr. Walker, your agency is currently running the facility.
The Air Force has gotten great value out of HAARP in the past. We took over from the Navy and managed it and actually did a number of experiment campaigns up there. Moving on to other ways of managing the ionosphere, which the HAARP was really designed to do, was to inject energy into the ionosphere to be able to actually control it. With DARPA completing their project, that's our last government customer that we have in the site.
It basically makes the ionosphere a laboratory, and we can do experiments that no one else can do. It's a laboratory without walls.
Okay, she mentioned DARPA was using HAARP, so let's see what we can find out about DARPA.
For anyone who isn't familiar with DARPA, right, it's the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, a mouthful. It is the most powerful, most secretive, most productive military agency in the world. The SecDef, at the time that DARPA was created, Neil McElroy, he went to Congress to get the funding, and he said, this agency is going to create the vast weapon systems of the future. That is what DARPA does. They are always 20 years ahead of anything that you or I know. So any technology that is like, what the hell was that I just saw and you're not supposed to have seen, that's DARPA. Right?
They were doing Neuralink in the 90s, right?
They are always doing things 20 years before you know about them, because They do what is called blue sky technology.
Blue sky
right?
research and technology, yes.
And they have to be ahead of the curve. They have to be,
amazing.
right? People forget there are at least 17 intelligence agencies. It's not just CIA.
17?
17. I mean, Google them, look them up, right? That's why there's now a director of national intelligence. So to stay ahead of the enemy, air quotes or not air quotes, to stay ahead, the federal government is always playing not just chess, but move the magic balls, right? And what's under what hat. And so things need to be hidden so that secrets can be kept.
DARPA is something most Americans have never heard of. It's the biggest collection of geniuses anywhere in government. These are the guys that are creating not the next generation of technology, but 3 generations from now. If there are flying saucers and they're not little green men from outer space, DARPA made them. Seriously. This always struck me as very funny. DARPA's work is so classified that one DARPA scientist sitting next to another DARPA scientist has no idea what the other guy's working on. It's too highly classified. I mean, even at the CIA, we weren't cleared.
Not even at your position?
I had to get a Q clearance once because I had to go to the Department of Energy to talk about a nuclear issue. Nobody liked the fact that I had the clearance, and I ended up having the clearance just for 1 day, and then they revoked it. But that's how DARPA is too. And this is another thing that always struck me as funny. There's a DARPA website, and they have pictures of scientists working together all in bliss. These are just generic pictures of random people you pull off the internet. These aren't DARPA people that are the pictures. You can't show the DARPA people. They're too highly cleared.
What is blue sky research technology? Perhaps this next clip from an ex-CIA agent and DARPA agent might shed some light on that.
You tell us what DARPA is?
Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, where all the top secret research goes on. It's often referred to as mind control weapons called V2K that can pipe voices into someone's head as a non-lethal weapon that resonates the dopamine cells of your brain and it floods it.
Floods your brain with dopamine?
Yeah, dopamine dump. That incapacitates the adversary. And so if you're programming someone to go after, let's say, a political target, all you have to do is use voice morphing, pipe in the tortures, the pains, and 24 hours, you'll drive the person crazy and they'll want to kill and stop the pain. You play a true tape loop, your mother hates you, blah, blah, the brainwashing. So they were trying to wipe the brain clean so they could rebuild new memory. It was funded by the CIA. How could you disable a person, making them dysfunctional? That would be scrambling their brains. That'd be dopamine dump, affecting their nervous system so they drop on the ground. So it's a combination of psychological warfare as well as directed energy weapons, along with the voice of God weapons with voice morphing. It's the most complex weapon system we have put together ever as a species.
Wow, it is scary to think they could drive you crazy with this technology by beaming horrible thoughts or voices directly into your skull, or perhaps even to people around you. What would that be like exactly? What would it feel like to have a directed mind control experiment target you? Perhaps this next clip can answer exactly that.
September 1988.
I was a receptionist at Kaiser Hospital for 10 years. I decided that I wanted to go back to school, so I went to UC Davis.
But as her studies get underway, things change.
I know what normal life is, and life became very abnormal.
It starts with her tone.
Usually you pick up a phone, you hear dial tone, but my phone, there would be click noises. There'd be a long pause, then static.
She has it checked, but the strange noises continue. Cheryl becomes concerned. It's the first of many appliances that behave erratically in her presence.
Things in my environment. All of the electrical equipment didn't work anymore. My computer, my TV.
Her unease grows as she discovers it's not only machines that act strangely around her.
Police cars started to follow me. I had a rock thrown at my car. Somebody tried to drive me off the road. I mean, I've never had a ticket. I've never taken drugs. People in my environment were acting out of character. I was acting my normal self. And people were acting weird. People turned against me. People would stare at you. And students would swear and spit on me.
Weirder still, random strangers on the street seem to know exactly what she's thinking.
I felt like I was surveilled. I thought somebody could read my thoughts.
Cheryl's personal life falls apart as friends and family drift away. Then, she's fired from her job.
It was like shock and awe. For 3 years, it was like that. And I realized, this wasn't going to go away despite my best efforts. That was a really depressing, blackest moment of my life. I just cried and cried and cried. I thought, why not just end it?
Fearing for her sanity, Cheryl seeks help.
So I went to my advisor, and I was having trouble academically, and she helped me get through this, and he was the only one that believed me.
Her advisor comes to a quick conclusion. Cheryl is the victim of a deliberate and organized campaign of harassment. But who is behind it?
First, we checked out. We thought, maybe there's a psychology experiment. They're trying to stress you out. There was no psychology experiment. So I hired private investigators, and I tried to figure out if there were any bugs in my apartment. Nothing. And talking to my advisor, we both figured only the government would have this kind of control over your telephone or what you did in the privacy of your apartment.
Deciding to investigate, Cheryl gains access to government documents. They reveal the unthinkable. A top-secret experiment is subjecting everyday citizens to mind control.
Major countries have developed this secret mind control technology, especially Russia and the United States.
She's convinced the people who harassed her were under mind control and didn't even know.
Somebody has to make them do things, without their knowing it.
Why choose Cheryl?
You're going to need to experiment on a lot of people. You can't do it ethically, so you're going to do it covertly,
She thinks she knows what put her on the government's radar.
Before I went to UC Davis, I went to the Army recruiting office. I filled out the forms. I put in my application, but I went to UC Davis instead. And then after that was when this happened. After networking with other victims, they have that connection. Former people who applied to the CIA, former people who have relatives in the government or the CIA are often targets.
Are the minds of innocent citizens being controlled by government-sanctioned experiments? Is Cheryl Welch telling the truth? Or are her claims absurd? Just another conspiracy theory that's impossible to prove? Maybe. But not if you listen to Nick Begich.
I think there's some good evidence that Cheryl Welch and many of the other people I've spoken with have been victimized by this electromagnetic mind control experiments. The weapons of this century aren't bombs and bullets and ordnance, but electromagnetic energy targeting the human being, which is a greatest revolution in military affairs since gunpowder.
Begich is an expert in government mind control. He is convinced the Pentagon has mastered a technology once thought to be science fiction. The ability to broadcast information directly into the human brain.
Our government began spending a lot of time looking at how to modify behavior of human beings. And going back to the Korean War, in fact, in a publication, Low-Intensity Conflict in Modern Technology, they have a chapter on electromagnetic weapon systems and being able to not just to debilitate someone, but actually even to stimulate certain activities within the brain.
But how?
H.A.R.P is the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project, which started as a joint effort of the Air Force and Navy. This is a very large array or field of antennas based in Alaska, radio frequency antennas.
H.A.R.P antennas transmit powerful radio signals into the upper atmosphere to study the effects on wireless communications. But Begich says H.A.R.P can also be used for more sinister ends.
H.A.R.P has announced several other programs and campaigns, and there's two areas that I got very concerned about. One was weather modification applications. The other was the effect on human beings. If you can modulate a signal that the brain locks onto, recognizes, and begins to mirror or follow the frequency following response. The brain rhythms change, then it creates a chemical cascade within the brain and the emotions change. Now the resolution gets finer and finer and finer. And it used to just to be about triggering emotions. You could change people's brain chemistry pretty readily, change their emotional state pretty easily. But when you get down to the idea of thoughts and being able to manipulate those, that requires a different kind of sophistication.
Can we hear sound without using our ears? Not only is it possible, says Begich, he can prove it using sound recorders. Brad Dahl.
So what I'm going to demonstrate is a earth pulse sound wave. And what this is an infrasound device. It's just a small electronic circuit that we run a CD player playing some Bach into our circuit, and then comes out through two piezoelectric transducers. So I'm going to place these transducers on your face. You're going to block your ears tightly. We put those in contact with the skin and listen.
Yeah.
So what do you hear?
I hear the music, yeah, loudly.
Right in the center of their forehead, inside their head, they'll hear Bach, just like they would with their ears, but the ears aren't involved.
It wasn't through my ears at all. It was basically, it felt like kind of it was coming from the middle of my head, no direction, and it was clear. So not through my ears at all, which is pretty cool.
Now we can do this wirelessly with microwave. So there's lots of ways to do it. And this just gives a very simple sort of workbench model that gives the principle so people can understand, yeah, you can really do it.
Because you just love death. I got a headbanger or what? Now this is a fascinating field, but there's just one problem. I'm not sure these piezoelectric transducers are going to catch on. That's a fashion accessory. And frankly, I don't even know what piezoelectric means. But if we're to believe Begich, the government don't even need these. They're tapping directly into our minds, controlling us with powerful invisible microwaves that come out of the very way we think and act, making us believe anything they want.
Well, I am hoping that this episode has shed some light on how mind control could easily be performed on a mass scale. That is all the time we have for this week's episode, fellow foilers. Tune in again next time for more strange and mysterious subjects that boggle the mind, defy science, and have you wondering what will happen come tomorrow. Until next time, stay cool and be nice to your neighbor, eh?